Hello, welcome to another edition of Low-Code Campfire. This is episode number 116 for September 22. It's an open lines discussion today, so we'll talk about what you want to talk about. I am Dale Warner, Head of Support for Plantain App, joined today by Patrick Anderson, Technical Success Manager for Plantain App. This is an event we do every Friday this hour, and it's an all skill levels welcome discussion. And it's a way to get our community together to discuss Plantain App and the challenges or techniques that you have been experiencing and have been developing. So do bring something to show and jump in. We record all these episodes, put them out on YouTube, so youtube.com/plantainapp, so you can sign up for those. We'll run this agenda today, which is to first start out and say hi, and then we'll go around the campfire. And we usually start with first call, and we may or may not get to anything else. But then after an hour or so, we'll go to Afterglow, where we turn off the recording, raise a virtual beverage, celebrate that it's Friday, either morning or afternoon, wherever you happen to be. And we'll just continue the discussion off the record. So do engage with us. If you do, please mute if you got noise going on in the background, and we're a very courteous group, so it shouldn't be a problem. You can submit questions and topics in advance. Use that QR code or the links that we send in the emails that we send to you. So with that, good morning.
Morning, Dale.
Good morning.
Good morning. Happy Friday.
Absolutely. All right. We are all the way up to first call. What's going on this morning? And Patrick and I apparently dressed alike. So
I was noticing that too. Funny.
Have more facial hair.
I'm waiting until the last 10 minutes for me to remember my first call. No, honestly, I can't think of anything at the moment. Well, Reva's here. She's here for some reason. What's she here for, Reva?
Well, someday I'm going to be Ben's backup at our office on the Plantain App project. But the problem is I have another full-time job at the same time. So I pop in whenever I can just to hear what you all are saying and learn.
Good. Well, appreciate that you do that. Yeah, I learn from this group week by week because we all go down different paths, right? So, good. Patrick, you didn't happen to put anything in your back pocket to talk about, did you?
No, I was just trying to think if I don't think I do right now.
Okay, there is one thing that comes to mind. First of all, I'm going to go take a look at anything that I've been working on here, new and different. And I know there's been an ongoing call. Mark has asked me several times, and I keep delaying putting up the reveal all context thing, and so we could make that happen today if we don't get into anything, if there's nothing better to talk about. Dynamic fields. Anybody catch dynamic fields this week at the Low-Code Cafe and have any follow-up questions from that?
It's Mark. Yeah, I watched most of that, Dale. I've done dynamic fields before, but I hadn't done it based on what data sort did you use? Was it Ajax?
I used JSON.
JSON, right. I hadn't done that before. Mm-hmm.
And Patrick asked me about that too. Why did you use JSON? And it really, that particular thing, it's going towards setting us up to be in a good position to use AI. But it really doesn't matter what the data source is, so long as you can create a list, right? So whether it's using an entity that returns a list that you're going to iterate through, or a CSV, or whatever's driving, doesn't really matter. So I picked that as kind of a very static thing that we could quickly get past what the data is, because the whole thing about dynamic is you're designing something for something that you don't truly know where it's going, right? The form is going to be something different every time, and I mean, you obviously have some control over it, but anyway. So
well, yeah, I liked it, Dale. I liked it a lot. I've used dynamic form for some very intricate things, and I've been surprised and pleased with how fast it loads up, even with building things dynamically. So I've been pretty pleased with it. The thing that maybe you could comment on about that would be wanting to put content side by side inside a dynamic container, because I don't think that we can. And so you could comment on it if you have one, but I've resorted to putting the content containers, the dynamic containers, side by side instead of
putting them
content.
into different ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's certainly an area that I didn't explore. We just in the one that and this is my prep one, not the one that I particularly showed, but we have a DC1, a dynamic container that is just taking up 6 of 12. So you could set up a second dynamic container, and so that would be an interesting one. Let's do that. Let's clone this and call it DC2 and put it on the right. And then just for quick and dirty, we can put different kinds of content. Like this question has 3 different kinds. So if we, for example, were to put the essays on the right-hand side in DC2, so we have our events where we're looping through, and we've got essays, add large text. And so if I change that to DC2, it should put it side by side. But yeah, you don't get a lot of choice about where in the container that it puts things. You can choose different containers.
Yeah, right. In my case, I know that I wish that I could put my dynamic content side by side. But at the same time, I'm not complaining. This is a pretty powerful thing that's going on here, this dynamic field generation. I've been really pleased with it.
So there's an advanced one, and by the way, we've had a couple of people join. If you have, we're still starting on first call, so if you have one, we'll get to that, or we could even interrupt this. But we're doing a continuation on since we did dynamic fields on Wednesday in the cafe, we're doing part 2. I was going to ask Mark, since you've used this, have you ever noticed that there is an action, and I'm not going to put one here, but if we look at dynamic fields, have you noticed this one, load dynamic field from JSON?
No, I'm not in the practice of using JSON too much just yet. So do you know anything about it?
Well, I do. This is a little advanced and wild, right? If you have let's try a different let's do a dynamic field, and it's going to be a tags input, doesn't matter, and we fill it in. It's DC2, it's DC2 has a field ID of that's Campfire. This is there's some tags, enter some tags, and it's got a data source of items, and we're not going to do anything initial. That'd be the number of tags to 2, have all this stuff defined on it, right? So I'm going to get rid, I'm just going to prove that this works here for a moment. So I'm going to get rid of my dynamic fields action. I'm just going to, this is just adding an arbitrary add tags input. So first we'll prove that it works. After a while. So we've got our tag names, A and D, whatever. You can see how it works. Okay. So this thing here generates, if you export it, it generates JSON, right? So we can copy this thing, and that other action, add dynamic fields, load dynamic field from JSON, you can put that same JSON into a box, into the fields JSON, and we'll say that this is going into DC2. But other than that, you don't have to specify anything. So it's saying you can make this up as you go along. If you're able to manipulate JSON, you can create a field that does anything programmatically. So
I'm curious, Dale. So you put the JSON for an action in there. Isn't it supposed to be the JSON for the field itself, or does the action JSON work?
Good catch. Good catch. So let's not do that. We'll come back to that. So we're going to do instead, I love it that you're saving me here. We're going to do a tags input that it's going to give us the format of the JSON. So this is going to be tags input, and we're going to do X, A, and Z as the items, and yeah, we'll make Y be the initial tag just for fun, just to show that this thing is working. All right, so
now you can get that JSON by clicking the export button at the top, but you have to kind of extract it out of because you're getting the
yes, I'm gonna save my progress here intermediately. Tags input is there, so we'll export it. We got to go find it.
I'm glad you're showing us this. I don't think I've tried to grab something out of the export before.
So here's our tags, and here's the XYZ part, and it's got some stuff going with it, all of our validators. We got to find to the end. If you this would be another, I mean, we can pick it out directly here if it's simple enough. This might be something, if it's too involved, you might want to go to something like Code Beautify and be able to visualize the JSON a little bit better. But anyway, so I'm going to delete this out where I'm not actually going to do the one that I'm putting in manually, because instead we're going to do one that we're putting in through load dynamic, and we'll paste, instead of the action, we'll paste what we're supposed to have in here, and that's it, hopefully. So let's try that out. So I've left this action, the add tags input, that ABC one should remain, but this second one for XYZ is new. So let's see what it does.
Nothing like experimentation during demo.
That's right. Cannot deserialize, blah, 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 because it requires a JSON array to deserialize correctly. So I think maybe it's telling me that I need to put it in an array. So we'll do that and see if that's the right form. I'm pretty sure I did a low-code feature focus on this one time. So worst case, we can look it up. Or ask Ben. All right, so there we go. Some enter some tags. The original one is there. We have another one, XYZ. Didn't initialize Y. I don't know what the reasoning for that is, but so this one is being created by this. And so now the idea is anything that anything that's in here, if you can manipulate JSON, you can change this to be whatever you want. And so there's two cases, there's several cases that come to mind. So one is if you want to programmatically create a field, create many fields even, as long as you have this template, you can say, load it with a different ID, a different name, and so you can iterate over it that way. And one of the other two, I may have gotten lost in my case count. Another reason why you might want to do this is that not every field type, when we go into dynamic fields and the actions that do that, not every field type that's possible is listed here in dynamic fields. We sometimes introduce fields that might not have an action here created yet, but that's not a limitation. You can use the technique I just showed to add something that doesn't already exist.
Right.
And then the third case is when we've created these actions, we have revealed most of the parameters that you're going to want to use, like the ID and the field ID. But it's possible that we haven't revealed everything that you might want to use. And you can always put in a change request to us to try and improve the action. But the other thing is you can use the template of the original action to add it, and you can get to anything, right? Anything that's valid to the forms builder is going to be valid here. So there's at least 3 different cases why this will work.
Very nice.
Yeah. So now I'm going to check my initial values thing because it's a little bit of a mystery why that didn't load. But
so Dale, with that, like you could have you could dynamically add a static text box. I didn't see that on the dynamic fields list, and it could contain, a link to a YouTube video or something like that.
Yes, I think add static is actually
it's
on there.
It's on the list.
Okay.
But yes, and even if it's not on, maybe we can find something that's not on the list and do that. So somebody look at the list of field types and see if you can spot something that's not on this list. Patrick. Currency. Lovely. I love it. So, repeating the exercise, if we go back over here and add currency, and we'll configure it.
Oh, you're working for my contractor. Give me some money.
Yes. We want dollars. We want the thing to be after the amount. Precision 2. No negative money. We only want positive money. So now, and I'm going to do this the other way this time. I'm going to copy the whole thing and use an editor to find my JSON. Just for variation, right? So we'll do this in code, and look for the currency item. So it starts at 393, and this is kind of nice because we can see for sure it draws some lines right where where it starts and stops. Yeah, so it happens to be this one all the way at the bottom. And so that I've copied that. I am going to eliminate the one that we added manually and instead do it as a load dynamic. And yeah, we'll just clone this one.
Could you just include that in, since that is an array in that other field, could you just include that JSON as a second element?
That's worth testing. So let's learn a lot of things today. Because this is an array, we can come down here and just put a comma and put another item inside. And I'm going to make sure that we can tell that it's completely different, right? So let's save that, see what happens. Which is, assuming that that's going to work, that's a great point that, instead of having, you could build up an array of content and load it all at once rather than looping through and adding content. Interesting.
Or those could be in tokens that you dynamically chose to include or not.
Yep. So interestingly, I'm seeing that I'm not getting the formatting that I expected. Right? No currency, no getting an error on that. So now it makes me worry about the currency field. So I'm going to go back to here and actually add a currency field. Did I pick the obsolete version of this?
No, you didn't. It was that one.
Now I did set a couple of parameters on it, so with it in a different position. So that's I'm going to repeat that part. So we'll export this again. Grab the one probably at the bottom. And we're going to have to give it something, make sure we have a different ID here or it'll collide. What's the ID? Form field ID. Must be form field ID. 1, so that's not it.
Is it
Since
the
your
UID
name-
at the end?
I'm sorry, try again.
There's a UID at the end of the list. $ UID.
Might be. Tell you what, keep myself out of trouble just to make sure it isn't. I want to keep both of them on the field, so I'm just going to change it this way, and so it won't conflict. All right.
And I was wondering, in the JSON there, you had title and name, but name was blank. And I just wondered, since they were sharing it, if that
Might be. They of course start out. Yeah, I don't. All right, so now we have how much money Jim is acting one way, currency is acting another way. So I would have, the original thing that I said, that anything that doesn't exist in a, we tried putting a field type that didn't exist as an add action into the box, and we're not getting a result that we expect. So apparently there's a limitation on that. Something for us to dig into and figure out if that's apparently a bug that this load action doesn't do. Something else to check.
That was still a good demo for showing we could put JSON in there. That's pretty powerful.
Yeah, should be pretty mind expanding that not only can you create things dynamically, but you can create an array of things ahead of it. Yeah, as you point out, you can use tokens. You can, but anything that's available to you, you should, in terms of the JSON options, you should be able to configure them. So anyway. Obviously, advanced topic doesn't have to, it's not a required. You may never encounter a use case for this stuff, but if you're doing dynamic, that's a fun one. All right. So Ben, what was your question? Enabled, disabled. Oh, enabling, disabling actions. So in certain areas of our program, in the new UI, we have, let's go take a look at that. For example, within automation or APIs, we have.
Oh, so it's not everywhere?
We haven't redone the.
Not yet.
Oh, okay. That's why I was confused, because I was like, I thought you guys showed us that, and I thought it was in there, and I was like, where did it go? I didn't realize it was only certain areas.
Right. So we can edit any one of these here just to illustrate what Ben was asking about. So those are input parameters. So there's this new disable action thing where you can turn things on and off. And that's not this. We haven't redone the UI in forms yet. That's the problem. So I could have disabled it, putting, and my favorite way is to just go to the condition and put false. But this is a nice UI to be able to just click and turn off things that you don't need, and it shows up that it's not going to impact.
Yeah, this is a nicer way, only because, like you just said, it actually shows you disabled and it grays it out. If you, which I do all the time, as you, Dale, when I'm testing something and I don't necessarily want it to run, I type in false, but all it does is it says enable show condition in that, there you go, in that orange. It doesn't actually tell you that it's been falsed out and turned off.
Because there could be another purposeful condition there, and so it's just alerting you to the fact that there's a condition. Yep. So
I like to add something to the description that tells me it's disabled, but it's manual process. You get so yeah, much better to have.
Yeah, usually what I do
zero.
is whenever I put false, I in the description in the front of it, I always write deprecated with a hyphen, just in all caps, just so that it really stands out, and I know I put false in that condition.
Well, that's more deliberate to me. I just put a 0 in the condition and I put a 0 at the end of the label, and it's easy to see and is easy to type, easy to clean up too.
so long as you know. But yes, this is absolutely the I mean, this is how I do it with disabled and false, but 0 will work as well for a condition, and anything that keys you in to knowing that the description, knowing that the thing is disabled. Just while we're talking about that, you might have a condition like, get ABC is tested. Whatever the condition is might be a valid one, and you might not want to get rid of it. So you can also say n false or n 0, and this lets you leave the old condition while testing, while turning it off. Right?
But so much nicer when we will have a disable button.
Right, that's right.
Because that gives us our visual, our condition, everything all in just one click.
While you're doing this, where you're evaluating, you want to keep something, you want to disable it for a little bit, I would love to have a little place in here where I could make a note to myself on why I've disabled it and what I'm trying to figure out in order to get it back working again. And so if I could have a note place in here on why it's disabled, or other situations as well, that'd be very helpful. Note to self.
So I think I did yes. I think you're right that having some kind of documentation in the action would be a universally useful thing to be able to, because it's not just why did I turn this off, but it's also if you're documenting for somebody who comes behind you, what is it that I did in this section, so that
Sure.
What was my thoughts, keeping that tied closely to the action itself, I think is useful.
Yeah, comment in code.
Yeah, when is helpful too.
When did I do this thing?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I added that as a feature request like 2 or 3 years ago, so I don't think you're going to find it anymore.
Good point. I don't think we deleted it, but it
was even on the old website system.
That might. Okay, so that was a fun one. What else? We have a few new people joining in. Anything that qualifies as a first call, or what do you care about?
I have a question, but it's not a first call priority. So if somebody else has an issue, then
we're past. Okay, I'm officially saying we're past first call. It's 35 minutes in. What do you guys think?
Well, I noticed when you do an export and import from an entity, how do you comes out and in with GUID, so you can't like copy a table or an entity within and just change a name within the same app. You get import errors. Is there a way? I've tried deleting the GUIDs. I've tried replacing the GUIDs. I haven't found the right combination. Is there a simple combination to export an entity and add it back in with a different name?
So here we got the question. We've got the export. Oops, that gives us a lot of stuff. And I'm going to do another one here. use a real editor just to be different. So we got a global ID, namespace, good. All the properties have global IDs now, so we probably have to get rid of all of that. Patrick, do you have any experience before I just go out whacking away at this?
No. But yes, this would be my inclination, what you're doing.
And that is not something I tried. So I went in and got rid of the values, but I left the
Yeah, because then it's trying to import a blank value for the global ID. So that's the issue there. And it's not going to accept that.
So yeah, before we sorry, talking to me or to Jim's method?
Yeah, I was saying that to Jim. Yeah. Yep.
Just as a reminder, the export entity is the export functionality is intended to help move things along from one system to another. So when we export and do it kind of in the intended use case, having those IDs is important, because when you import it into the other system, now the other system is using the same IDs, and so our eventual MIO multi-environment orchestration will understand that these two tables and fields are the same thing and work to resolve conflicts. But for this use case where we're trying to use that mechanism to import in, so all I've done is removed all the IDs, and I'm calling it billing copy. Let's see what happens. No namespace provided, no record name provided. So it doesn't like that. So
does cloning an entity, is that like is something that people feel like would be is that a common thing that people want to do? Because that's basically what you're trying to accomplish, Jim, correct? Is a clone of an existing entity. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it's not something I do all the time. It just would be a time saver when I need to do it. Like I have a transactions table and I'm going to build a history table, and I just want to move it over.
Structure.
Yeah.
I've needed it from time to time as well.
Been rare for me, but I would think that would also come in handy if you're cloning it to another system. No?
Cloning another system will work. It's cloning to the same system.
Oh, right, because of the ID. Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of deleting all those GUIDs, could you just like change one or some part of it with each GUID?
It's a possibility. It might confuse it as well, but I would be more than willing to try that. So let's take your scenario, Mark. We'll do another. Paste this back here, the original with all the IDs, and I'm pretty sure we're not going to need. It's not whining about these, so we can.
It might though.
That'll be next.
Yeah.
Whining about this one.
Probably the namespace one could remain unchanged because it's okay to pull into the same namespace, but might as well try it anyway.
The GUIDs are of a particular length. You can't just add a character. So That. Import. Entity record name property. So it's not happy with that. Okay, so I was going in a different direction. I did billing copy. I did and I'm just trying to hack my way into solving a problem. I don't know if it's going to be worth your effort to do this. It really should be a feature, right? But this one is, I just created it with one field and it's valid, right? So now I can go grab the other properties that I want out of the array and include them.
So basically you're building the header information for the entity, and then we're just copying all the field configuration.
Right. So if you had 100 fields and you really didn't want to do the work, then we created it create the entries for what we're trying to do, and then add the field IDs. So that's my theory. I'm doing it without global IDs. Let's see if this import will work. Where am I working? There I am. Yeah. So I think we take this as an action item, a good catch, that cloning an entity is virtually impossible, or likely impossible.
It looks so possible with those buttons there.
Yep. Those are just meant to we intended them for transport, and you're using them for something that makes a whole lot of sense. So good call, good catch. All right, what else? Right.
I'll lobby for a feature request.
Okay. Good.
I added what I think is a simple one to the list, but it needs votes.
Neil and I have learned that when we think something's simple, it doesn't always turn out that way.
Yeah. And that's not a plant and app limitation. It seems to be that way. Try building a house.
Is that it? Was it just a one word? Oh, there it goes.
Good idea, Jim.
Oh, I see. You're so whatever tab you're in, that's the one that you would like to see put into the title of the.
Well, I like to see if I open each of the different pages inside the configuration, I like to know which one it is. Yeah. I spend a lot of time clicking between the different tabs going, oh, wait, where was that API tab?
Mm-hmm.
That's
And
a
if
good
we,
idea.
and if you could actually, like when you open a workflow, because a lot of times I have multiple workflows open, and actually input a workflow ID or something in there on that tab name, so I know just to save the clicking time.
Yep. That does sound like a good developer experience thing.
Dale, can you check one of your more recent Like something has a more recent version on, because I don't know, I'm not sure what the difference is, but I'm seeing that on maybe. No, you're definitely not.
Find a 126 version. It's over here for just a second. So I don't have to blur it out. We'll get up the most current version we have going. One of the challenges of the most current is that oftentimes it needs to be updated.
Yep.
It'll take us a minute as well. So if there's anything else that you want to talk about while we wait for this to update, but we'll get the current and making sure it's not in here.
So in my 126 version, I'm seeing I see workflows caret and then the name of my site, APIs caret and the name of my site. That's what I'm seeing. So I hope that's something that's consistent and is and it has been updated. But
I noticed that if I am opening like a form development page in another tab, if I'll right click on the link and choose the open it up in full screen, then I get a note in the tab that I can identify which form I'm working on. But if I don't open it up in the full screen, I don't get the same information in the tab. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It should show the form name as the primary thing of the tab, right?
Well, I get more by putting it up as a full screen. I've been finding that I'm using tab groups to identify which tabs are what. Having multiple tab open is a big deal.
Yep,
You need so many.
Hello and welcome. Of course, I picked a bad example. Manage form full screen. The tab name is
Drum roll, please.
profile form pipe manage form. So
Right.
this,
Get the
so you're good there. But if we open it up, not in the full screen, just manage form, new tab, you don't get that. So
You don't get it.
but at least that one is in your control. So then let's see. We go to workflows here. Yeah, workflows greater than. And if we edit that, we get edit workflow. So it's not giving you the name, but at least you know you're editing a workflow. So this looks like we're most of the way to what you asked about, Jim.
Cool. And I didn't know, I always open in tab. I never open in new window. So, I always wondered why
What
on a
this
form.
distinction is, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have multiple browser windows open at the same time?
No, I usually don't. Well, sometimes, but yes. Usually I'm just in tabs.
It might be nice to show which workflow you're working on up there in the tab instead of just a workflow.
I absolutely agree. I don't know how hard that is, but I like, so back to the suggestion here, this has been implemented except for something like workflow and either a number or a name. Jim, in thinking about it, do you have a preference for number over name?
I mean, I would prefer name, but then I got thinking that then some of my names often start out the same, and there's going to be a limitation, and
Right.
If it started out 63 dash, billing invoice, add, that would be fine.
Kind of give you all the, of course you can hover them and get it whatever the cutoff is, but
I don't know if that works in the current version, but it does work there.
oh yeah, I mean, I agree, in the current version I don't think it does. We're just saying it's configuration, so
yeah. Okay.
So 126, that's a minor enhancement that has been granted, and we'll take a note to try and get better at it. Good one. Yep.
Incidentally, I did find the feature request to add a note to actions and such. It's from March of 22, and it's got 6 upvotes. Let's do it.
I assume automation completed. Great. All right, at least we'll remember what we got. What number was the one you were talking about, Mark?
37.
Sure that I'm on this one.
Yeah.
All right.
They're looking up.
I'm just going to take a note that for the product sync, and Patrick, perhaps you can put this on the agenda, the idea that we could introduce a documentation action. It would cost us like nothing to implement. I'm not worried about the cost, obviously, but I mean, it would take 15 minutes and be absolutely no impact. That you could have a documentation action, which would be very simple for us to put in place, so that at least you could add an action above an action to document what's going on in your wherever you need to in your low code.
That
Cool.
sounds good.
Great. So I'm going to say what else? I've got one more thing to show potentially that would be fun. But if somebody else has something to look at, I'm happy to do that.
Did you want to talk about Bazinga? Only because an email went out.
I'm not aware of what. Can you tell me which email you refer?
Bogdan sent out one with his name yesterday, talking about the success of Bazinga.
Yeah. So I wasn't aware that one went out. Was there a call to action for that? If you want to follow up, for example, was that the?
No, it looks like marketing kind of
Mhm.
awareness.
Okay. Yes, we are on that one. We're getting closer to. I mean, Bazinga advances all of the time, and so the ability to ingest your information to make a very smart AI is happening, and it's also multi-channel. So, for example, where you're used to thinking about AI as something that you chat with, but it doesn't only happen on the application. It can be embedded like a pop-up chat window. You've seen that kind of thing before. We're in the process of putting it into Teams so that you can, or other areas, wherever you might work. The idea is to bring that intelligence wherever you might be working. And then it's not always about chatting and about asking a question and getting an answer. Sometimes there's having it do specialized work. We've done one proof of concept where a client was dealing with addresses that were coming in a very ugly format. They just all over the place, and understanding the addressing scheme for that particular country, and then being able to look at each address and straighten it out into individual parts was a episode that was a functionality where the client was having several people taking several weeks to be able to go through manually, and so using Bazinga to do that was a definite advantage to them. So, but that's not something that I was aware that Bogdan was out marketing and sending out an email, so I don't have anything specific for that. I just wanted to close the loop on something I talked about a couple of weeks ago. I'm working with Leaflet, and so having some neat functionality things that, for example, if you wanted to select addresses out of an area, to be able to do that. So being able to be nicely interactive. Also, the types of things the types of markers that are available in Leaflet give us nice functionality. So, for example, after selecting out the addresses and doing routing, which you guys have seen me do before, to have it pick out and color them and put individual text content on the markers. I remain quite impressed with Leaflet.
Is Leaflet an alternative to Google Maps?
It is. So it's leafletjs.com, and it's been around for quite a while, and it's they said, I mean, if you look at their text, that's all about doing the things that most people want to do. I found it quite easy to take, for example, the techniques that Jerry has showed us in previous episodes when he guested with us, and to be able to make it do all those same things without a lot of effort. But then getting additional things like being able to pick things out interactively was very easy to build in. So being able to pick out an area like that, or be able to interact with your map in a number of ways. It's like, for example, I can put those markers in and then remove them and things like that. Really cool. And then the same thing, being able to click on a marker and see the data underneath it. That's all. Yep, very much like Google, but not Google. Good.
Good.
With that, we coast into the end of our amazingly popular web show. The 7 cents I get from the reviews, that the repeat viewings of this, I bought a gumball last week, so do keep watching. Seriously, happy low coding. We'll do this again next week, and so we'll see you then. Thanks, everyone. Hang around for Afterglow.